The siren grew louder and then, without warning, it stopped. Not at the hospital, not at a traffic light. Right outside Harlow's auto shop, where I was elbow-deep in the engine of Mrs. Peterson's Cadillac. The silence that followed felt wrong in the particular way that certain silences feel wrong. The way a scream cut off too soon feels wrong. Through the open garage door, I watched the emergency lights keep flashing, red and blue painting the rain-slicked pavement in alternating washes of color. The engine had died. Whatever had brought that ambulance to this block, it was not going any further on its own. "Jack, what's going on out there?" Frank Harlow's voice came from beneath the hydraulic lift where he was changing oil on a BMW, his tone carrying the mild irritation of a man who has learned to treat interruptions as personal affronts. "Ambulance broke down," I called back. I was already setting down my ratchet and wiping my hands on a shop rag. The EMT had jumped from the driver's seat and lifted the hood with the frantic energy of someone who knows that time is not abstract. Panic is visible even from 30 feet away, even through rain. Frank emerged from under the lift. His face had already settled into the expression I had learned to read during my 11 years working for him, the expression that meant the answer was no before I had finished asking. "Don't even think about it, Jackson. Mrs. Peterson's picking up that Cadillac at noon, and she's already called twice." I glanced at the wall clock. 10:17. I looked back at the ambulance. A second EMT had come out from the rear doors and was gesturing urgently to the driver. I reached for my emergency toolkit. Frank stepped between me and the open bay door. "Not our problem. County Dispatch will send another unit. That Cadillac pays our bills." Through the rain, I could see the driver had spotted movement in the garage. He was waving in our direction with the desperation of someone who has run out of other options. "Please." He was close enough now for the word to carry clearly. "We need help. Jackson." Frank lowered his voice to the register he used when he wanted to make sure something was understood. "You walk out that door, don't bother coming back." The garage went still around us. Miguel, our youngest mechanic, stopped working on his brake job and looked at his hands. Denise paused mid-sentence on the phone in the front office and stood in the doorway watching. Frank had been their employer as long as he had been mine, and everyone understood what his voice at that particular pitch meant. I looked at the ambulance. I looked at Frank. "I'll have the Cadillac done by noon," I said, and walked out the door. The rain hit me like cold water thrown from a bucket. I crossed the lot at a jog, toolkit in hand. The driver, Rodriguez, according to the badge on his chest, looked at me with a relief so complete it was almost painful to see. "Engine just died," he said. "We've got a critical cardiac patient. Next available unit is 20 minutes out." I popped the hood without answering. Rain soaked immediately through the back of my shirt as I leaned in. 20 years fixing engines in everything from civilian sedans to military vehicles, in conditions that made this look like a controlled environment, had trained my hands to diagnose by touch as much as sight. Within seconds I had it. The fuel pump relay. Failed, almost certainly from water intrusion through a cracked housing. Not subtle once you knew where to look. A woman in scrubs appeared at my elbow. Her glasses were already speckling with rain. "The patient's condition is deteriorating," she said. "BP is dropping. I can bypass the relay," I told her. "Give me 3 minutes." My fingers moved quickly despite the cold, stripping wires, creating a temporary circuit. It was a patch job, the kind of repair that would not survive 100 miles, but would survive 5, which was how far St. Mary's Hospital was from where we stood. I had done similar work in worse places, in the dark, with fewer tools, with considerably higher stakes than this. "Try it now," I called to Rodriguez. The engine coughed once, twice, then it caught and roared back to life. The woman in scrubs put her hand on my shoulder for a moment, before she ran back to the rear doors. Just 2 words, but she put everything behind them. "Thank you." Rodriguez gave me a quick salute through the window as the siren came back on. I stood in the rain and watched the ambulance pull out of sight, red and blue blurring through the downpour. Only then did I turn around. Frank was standing in the garage doorway, rigid and backlit, exactly where he had been when I left. I started walking back. 11 years at Harlow's. I had come here when Tyler was 4 years old, 2 years after getting out of the Army. Just a man looking for steady work with a small boy and a modest set of requirements. Frank had given me a job, and I had given him 11 years of reliability and craftsmanship and customer relationships built so slowly and carefully that half his repeat business had my name attached to it in some form. I had taken his side in every dispute worth taking sides in. I had worked overtime without complaint, covered shifts on short notice, trained every mechanic who had come through the shop in the past 7 years. None of that was going to matter this morning, and I already knew it. "I told you not to go," Frank said when I reached the door. "I know, but that Cadillac will still be ready by noon." "No, it won't." His voice was flat. The kind of flat that means the decision is already behind him, already finished. I meant what I said. "You're fired, Jackson." "Frank, come on." Denise had appeared in the office doorway, her face creased with genuine distress. "He's been here 11 years. He knew the rules," Frank said. "Customer vehicles come first, always." He looked at me. "Someone could have died in that ambulance while you were playing hero on my time." I stood in the rain, pooling around my work boots, and looked at him. "They wouldn't have made it in time," I said. "That's not your call to make. Not on my time. Not when my customers are waiting." He pointed at the door behind me. "Get your things." My locker held the accumulation of a working life, tools I had collected over decades, each one with a history attached. The socket set my father had given me the day I enlisted. The diagnostic kit I had bought with my first bonus at Harlow's. Specialty wrenches acquired for specific jobs that no one else in the shop knew how to do. I took my time packing them into my toolbox, not as a statement, but because they deserved to be handled carefully. Miguel came over while I was finishing up. He was 23 and had been here 2 years, and I had taught him almost everything he knew about diagnostics. "This isn't right, Jack." "It's okay, kid." I managed something like a smile. "You remember what I showed you about those Japanese transmissions?" He nodded. His jaw was tight. Denise waited until Frank's office door closed before she crossed the shop floor. "Jack, Meadowview Garage is hiring. I've got a cousin there. I could make a call." I thanked her and closed my locker. The rain had lightened to a drizzle by the time I carried my toolbox to the truck. The truck was aging and had seen better decades, but it ran perfectly because I knew every inch of its engine and had never let it deteriorate to the point where it required real attention. I put the toolbox carefully in the passenger seat and sat behind the wheel and looked at the garage through the windshield. My phone vibrated. Tyler's voice when I answered was the voice of a 15-year-old who does not yet know that the world can have a bad morning. "Hey, Dad. Miss Rivera loved my science project. She said it showed real engineering talent. Pride arrived before the anxiety had a chance to move out of the way." "That's great, son. You okay? You sound weird." "We'll talk when I get home," I said. "I'm proud of you." I sat in the truck for a few minutes after hanging up. 43 years old. Starting over, Millfield was a small town and Frank had influence. Finding another position would not be easy. Tyler's college fund was already stretched. The property taxes were coming due. His braces needed adjustment next week. I drove without particular destination for a while, and then I found myself pulling into the parking lot of St. Mary's Hospital. I was not entirely sure why. Some need to complete a loop, maybe, to know whether the thing I had just traded my livelihood for had been worth it. The ambulance was in the emergency bay. Its engine properly shut down now. Rodriguez spotted me as I approached, and his face opened with genuine relief. "Hey, I was hoping you'd show up. Just wanted to make sure you got here okay. Thanks to you, we did." He studied my expression the way people do when they think they already know the answer to what they're about to ask.
"Wait, did you get in trouble for helping us?"
I shrugged. "Lost my job." His face fell. "Man, that's messed up. Just did what needed doing." The woman in scrubs, Dr. Patricia Collins, came out of the emergency doors looking exhausted in the specific way of someone who has just finished doing something difficult well. When she saw me, something moved across her face. "You're still here," she said. She came over. "Rod mentioned you lost your job because of us. It wasn't because of you still." She paused. "What you did was extraordinary. That patient is stable. But if that ambulance had stayed stranded another 20 minutes, she let the thought finish itself. She told me the hospital was always looking for skilled maintenance personnel and offered to put in a word." I thanked her. She started to leave and then stopped. For what it's worth, the patient was conscious when we arrived. She asked about the man who fixed the ambulance. A small smile crossed her face. Catherine Holloway tends to remember people who help her. I looked up Catherine Holloway. The name was not obscure in Millfield or in the county surrounding it. Catherine Holloway ran Holloway Motors, the largest employer in the region. Their manufacturing plant in neighboring Westbrook employed thousands of people, produced vehicles that competed seriously with the major American automakers, and had been in genuine difficulty 6 years ago before Catherine had taken over the company and turned it around through a combination of practical intelligence and absolute refusal to be managed by the size of the problem. Dr. Collins went back inside. I stood in the rain outside an emergency bay and thought about this new information and concluded, reasonably, that it probably made no practical difference. A CEO waking up alive in a hospital room did not translate automatically into any improvement in my employment situation. I had helped someone. The someone happened to be powerful. Those two facts lived in separate categories. I drove home. Tyler was at school. The house was ours, a 3-bedroom we had bought when Nicole was still alive, before the cancer. It felt too large sometimes, just the two of us moving through rooms that had been designed for a fuller life, but neither of us could leave. The house still held her in some way that neither of us could articulate or afford to give up. I spread bills across the kitchen table. Without income, we had roughly 2 months before things became genuinely serious. I was doing this arithmetic when my phone rang. Unknown number.
Is this Jackson Mitchell?
A woman's voice, crisp, professional. Yes, Rebecca Winters, Human Resources Director at Holloway Motors. I'm calling on behalf of Ms. Holloway. She'd like to meet with you. Would you be available to come to St. Mary's Hospital tomorrow morning at 10? I said yes. The call ended before I had formed a question. I spent the evening in a state of suspended uncertainty, unable to predict what the meeting was or what it might mean, unable to stop thinking about it long enough to concentrate on anything else. Tyler noticed at dinner. You seem far away, he said. I told him what had happened. All of it, Frank. The ambulance. The patient's name. The phone call. He listened carefully, the way he had always listened, with the full attention quality that Nicole had had and that he had inherited from her. And you're hesitating about the meeting. Why? He asked. I'm a mechanic, I said. She's a CEO. Those are different worlds. Tyler looked at me with the particular steadiness of a 15-year-old who has learned some things the hard way. Mom always said that opportunity comes when you do the right thing, even when it's hard. My chest tightened. Nicole would have loved this story. She would have already decided how to celebrate it. What if I can't function in that environment? I said. Corporate offices, engineers with degrees, meetings and reports, Dad. Tyler's voice was almost gentle. You fixed vehicles in actual war zones. I think you can handle a few meetings. I dressed carefully in the morning, in my best clothes, which were clean and decent without being anything that would make me invisible in a regular grocery store. I trimmed my beard and drove to St. Mary's and asked at reception for Rebecca Winters. She emerged from the elevator, looking as polished as her voice had suggested. Everything about her, projecting a competence so complete it had become a kind of aesthetic. She led me to the 4th floor. The VIP section was evident in the soft lighting and the real artwork on the walls, and the private rooms with actual doors. 2 men in suits stood outside one of them and stepped aside when Rebecca approached. Catherine Holloway was sitting up in the adjustable bed, propped against pillows, looking more composed than seemed reasonable for someone who had had a cardiac event the previous morning. She was 62 years old and carried herself with the easy authority of someone who has not needed to perform it for a long time. Silver-streaked hair pulled back, face pale but eyes sharp. Mr. Mitchell, she said, please come in. I stepped into the room. Rebecca withdrew when Catherine asked her to, and then it was just the two of us, and the particular quality of silence that hospital rooms have. Please sit, Catherine said. I've been eager to meet the man who saved my life. I fixed an ambulance, ma'am. The paramedics and doctors saved your life. She studied me with the direct attention of someone who has spent decades learning to read people quickly. Dr. Collins tells me the ambulance would have been stranded for at least 20 more minutes without you. By their estimation, I wouldn't have survived those 20 minutes. She paused. So yes, Mr. Mitchell, you did save my life. I shifted under her gaze, just did what needed doing. A hint of a smile. Dr. Collins mentioned you said that yesterday. It's refreshing in its simplicity. She let a moment pass. I understand you lost your job because of it. I tensed. News travels fast. It does when I ask questions. Catherine's expression was matter of fact. 11 years at Harlow's auto shop, consistently praised by customers, military background in vehicle maintenance. Frank Harlow doesn't seem like a man who appreciates what he lost. Frank has his principles, I said, and I felt the strange compulsion to mean it. And you? She looked at me directly. What comes first for you? People, I said. Always has been. She nodded as if I had confirmed something. Tell me about your military experience with vehicles. 8 years, I said. Army vehicle maintenance specialist. Everything from Humvees to tanks, 2 deployments to Afghanistan. If it had an engine and broke down in a combat zone, I fixed it. Under pressure with limited resources, Catherine said. It was not a question. That's the job. She shifted slightly, a brief wince of discomfort she did not bother to hide. Do you know much about Holloway Motors? Only what everyone around here knows. Largest employer in the region. You took over 6 years ago when the company was in trouble. Turned it around. The simplified version, she acknowledged. What's less known is that we're at another juncture. The automotive industry is changing in ways that require real adaptation. She reached for her water glass, and I moved to help instinctively. She waved me off with a look that was not unkind, but was final. I'm offering you a job, Mr. Mitchell. The words arranged themselves in my understanding without quite settling. A job, I said. Our vehicle safety and performance division needs someone with your particular combination of skills and perspective. Someone who makes the right decision under pressure. Someone who sees what needs doing and does it regardless of the personal cost. Ms. Holloway, I said carefully, I'm a mechanic. You're far more than that. She leaned forward slightly. Those qualities I just described are considerably rarer than technical skills, which you also have in abundance. The salary would be twice what Harlow paid you, full benefits, flexible schedule to accommodate your son. I sat with this for a moment. Why me? I said. There must be hundreds of qualified mechanics you could hire. Catherine's expression changed slightly, softened at some internal edge. When I was lying in that ambulance, she said, feeling my heart failing, I heard the paramedic tell Dr. Collins they'd radioed for another unit, but it would be 20 minutes. And then he said, wait, someone's pulling over. She looked at me. In that moment, Mr. Mitchell, you didn't calculate whether I was worth your time. You saw a person in trouble and acted. I believe that perspective is exactly what Holloway Motors needs. Take 24 hours, she said. Rebecca will give you the details. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with Tyler and the Holloway Motors folder between us. Let me get this straight, he said. You got fired for helping someone that someone turned out to be Catherine Holloway, and now she's offering you a job that pays double. That's about right. And you're hesitating because it doesn't feel real, I said. Yesterday, I was getting fired from a garage. Today, I'm being offered a corporate position by the CEO of the largest company in the county. Tyler looked at me with Nicole's steadiness. Life changes fast sometimes. Mom always said opportunity comes when you do the right thing. My chest tightened. What if I can't cut it there? I said. He looked at me steadily. Dad, war zones. I think you can handle meetings. The next morning, I called Rebecca Winters and accepted. 6 months later, I stood in Catherine Holloway's office on the top floor of the headquarters building. The first months had been difficult and rewarding in the proportions that good work usually is. I had identified safety improvements for their newest models that the engineering team had not found, earning a respect that was slow in coming and therefore more genuinely given. I had learned how a large organization moves and where it gets stuck, and I had learned that the practical perspective I brought, the understanding of how things actually behave under actual conditions, was rarer inside the building than anyone there wanted to admit. The Director of Vehicle Safety position has been approved by the board, Catherine said, sliding a folder across the desk. With you as my first choice to fill it. I stared at the offer. You've proven yourself invaluable, she said. Your practical perspective has transformed how we approach vehicle safety. You see problems our computer models miss. That evening, I took a deliberate detour past Harlow's auto shop on my way home. Through the bay door, I could see Frank working under a lift, business continuing as it always had. I felt nothing that resembled bitterness. What I felt was something closer to gratitude. His decision to fire me had opened a door I would never have thought to look for, let alone walk through. Tyler was waiting on the porch when I pulled up, waving an envelope. "Dad, I got accepted to the Holloway Motors summer internship program."
Engineering track?
"Yes. And completely on my own merits," he added with a firmness that told me he had thought about how he wanted to say that. "I didn't mention you work there until the final interview." I put my arm around his shoulders as we went inside. "Your mom would be so proud of you." "Of both of us," Tyler corrected. "She always said you were meant for more than fixing cars. Turns out you're pretty good at saving lives, too." I thought about the chain of events. One moment in the rain, one decision made before I had time to calculate the cost, one choice to put someone else's need above my own security. It had taken away an 11-year job and given me a purpose I had not known to want. In saving Catherine Holloway's life, I had inadvertently found my own. "Just did what needed doing," I said, and that, I understood now, would always be enough.